Chapter 27. The Baron is going away. Well and good. I will load my gun, go up into the hills, and fire a salvo in his honor at Eduardo's. I will bore a deep hole in a rock and blow up a mountain in his honor and Eduardo's. And a great boulder shall roll down the hillside and dash mightily into the sea just as his ship is passing by. I know a spot, a channel down the hillside, where rocks have rolled before and made a clean road to the sea. Far below there is a little boathouse. 2 mining drills, I say to the smith, and the smith whets 2 drills. Ava has been put to driving back and forth between the mill and the quay with one of Ermac's horses. She has to do man's work, transporting sacks of corn and flour. I met her. Her face is wonderfully fresh and glowing. Dear God, how tender and warm is her smile. Every evening I meet her. You look as if you had no troubles, Ava, my love. You call me your love. I am an ignorant woman, but I will be true to you. I will be true to you if I should die for it. Ermac grows harsher and harsher every day, but I do not mind it. He is furious, but I do not answer him. He took hold of my arm and went gray with fury. One thing troubles me. And what is it that troubles you? Ermac threatens you. He says to me, "Aha, it's that lieutenant you've got in your head all the time." I answer, "Yes, I am his." Then he says, "Ah, you wait. I'll soon get rid of him." He said that yesterday. It doesn't matter. Let him threaten. And with closed eyes, she throws her arm around my neck. A quiver passes through her. The horse stands waiting. Chapter 28. I sit up in the hills mining. The autumn air is crystal about me. The strokes of my drill ring steadily and even. Aesop looks at me with wondering eyes. Wave after wave of content swells through my breast. No one knows that I'm here among the lonely hills. The birds of passage have gone. A happy journey, and welcome back again. Titmouse and blackcap and a hedge sparrow or so live now alone in the bush and undergrowth. All is so curiously changed. The dwarf birch bleeds redly against the gray stones. A harebell here and there show among the heather, swaying and whispering a little song. High above all hovers an eagle with outstretched neck on his way to the inland ridges. And the evening comes. I lay my drill and my hammer in under the rock and stop to rest. All things are glooming now. The moon glides up in the north. The rocks cast gigantic shadows. The moon is full. It looks like a glowing island, like a round riddle of brass that I pass by and wonder at. Aesop gets up and is restless. What is it, Aesop? As for me, I'm tired of my sorrow. I will forget it, drown it. Lie still, Aesop, I tell you. I will not be pestered. Ava asked, "Do you think of me sometimes?" I answer, "Always." Ava asked again, "And is it any joy to you to think of me?" I answer, "Always a joy, never anything but a joy." Then Ava says, "Your hair is turning gray." I answer, "Yes, it is beginning to turn gray." But Ava says, "Is it something you think about that is turning it gray?" And to that I answer, "Maybe." At last Ava says, "Then you do not think only of me." Aesop, lie still. I will tell you about something else instead. But Aesop stands sniffing excitedly down toward the valley, pointing and dragging at my clothes. When at last I get up and follow, he cannot get along fast enough. A flush of red shows in the sky above the woods. I go on faster, and there, before my eyes, is a glow, a huge fire. I stop and stare at it. Go on a few steps and stare again. My hut is ablaze. Chapter 29. The fire was Ermac's doing. I saw through it from the first. I lost my skins and my bird's wings. I lost my stuffed eagle. Everything was destroyed. What now? I lay out for 2 nights under the open sky without going to Surland to ask for shelter. At last I rented a deserted fisher hut by the quay. I stopped the cracks and jive moss and slept on a load of red horseberry ling from the hills. Once more my needs were filled. Edwarda sent me a message to say she had heard of my misfortune and that she offered me on her father's behalf a room at Surland. Edwarda touched. Edwarda generous. I sent no answer. Thank heaven I was no longer without shelter, and it gave me a proud joy to make no answer to Edwarda's offer. I met her on the road with the Baron, and they were walking arm in arm. I looked them both in the face and bowed as I passed. She stopped and asked, "So will you not come and stay with us, Lieutenant?" "I'm already settled in my place," I said, and stopped also. She looked at me. Her bosom was heaving. "You would have lost nothing by coming to us," she said. Thankfulness moved in my heart, but I could not speak. The Baron walked on slowly. "Perhaps you do not want to see me any more," she said. "I thank you, Edwarda, for offering me shelter when my house was burned," I said. "It was the kinder of you, since your father was hardly willing." And with bared head I thanked her for her offer. "In God's name, will you not see me again, Glan?" she said suddenly. The Baron was calling. "The Baron is calling," I said, and took off my hat again respectfully. And I went up into the hills to my mining. Nothing should make me lose my self-possession any more. I met Ava there. "What did I say?" I cried. "Ermac cannot drive me away. He has burned my hut, and I already have another hut." She was carrying a tar bucket of brush. "What now, Ava?" "Ermac has a boat in the shed under a cliff, and had ordered her to tar it. He watched her every step. He had to obey." "But why in the shed there? Why not at the quay?" "Ermac ordered it so." Ava, my love, they make a slave of you, and you do not complain. See, now you are smiling again, and life streams through your smile, for all that you are a slave. When I got up to my mining work, I found a surprise. I could see that someone had been on the spot. I examined the tracks and recognized the print of Ermac's long, pointed shoes. What could he be ferreting about here for? I thought to myself and looked around. No one to be seen. I had no suspicion. And I fell to hammering with my drill, never dreaming what harm I did. Chapter 30. The mail packet came. It brought my uniform. It was to take the Baron and all his cases of scales and seaweed on board. Now it was loading up barrels of herrings and oil at the quay. Toward evening, it would be off again. I took my gun and put a heavy load of powder in each barrel. When I had done that, I nodded to myself. I went up into the hills and filled my mine with powder as well. I nodded again. Now everything was ready. I lay to wait. I waited for hours. All the time I could hear the steamer's winches at work, hoisting and lowering. It was already growing dusk. At last the whistle sounded. The cargo was on board. The ship was putting off. I still had some minutes to wait. The moon was not up, and I stared like a madman through the gloom of the evening. When the first point of the bow thrust out past the islet, I lit my slow match and stepped hurriedly away. A minute passed. Suddenly there was a roar, a spurt of stone fragments in the air. Hillside trembled, and the rock hurtled crashing down the abyss. The hills all round gave echo. I picked up my gun and fired off one barrel. The echo answered time and time again. After a moment, I fired the second barrel too. The air trembled at the salute, and the echo flung the noise out into the wide world. It was as if all the hills had united in a shout for the vessel sailing away. A little time passed, the air grew still, the echoes died away, and all the hills and earth lay silent again. The ship disappeared in the gloom. I was still trembling with strange excitement. I took my drills and my gun under my arm and set off with slack knees down the hillside. I took the shortest way, marking the smoking trap left by my avalanche. He followed me, shaking his head all the time and sneezing at the smell of burning. When I came down to the shed, I found a sight that filled me with violent emotion. A boat lay there, crushed by the falling rock, and Ava. Ava lay beside it, mangled and broken, dashed to pieces by the shock, torn beyond recognition. Ava lying there dead. Chapter 31. One more have I to write. I fired no shot for many days. I had no food and did not eat at all. I sat in my shed. Ava was carried to the church, an Airmax white painted houseboat. I went there, overland, on foot. Ava's dead. Do you remember her little girlish head with hair like a nun's? She came so quietly, laid down her head and smiled. And did you see how full of life that smile was? Be still, Aesop. I remember a strange saga story of 4 generations ago, of Island's time, when Stammer was a priest. A girl sat captive in a stone tower. She loved the Lord. Why? Ask the winds and the stars. Ask the God of life. For there is none that knows such things. The Lord was her friend and lover. But time went on, and one fine day he saw another, and his liking changed. Like a youth he loved his maid. Often he called her his blessing and his dove, and said, "Give me your heart." And she did so. He said, "May I ask for something, love?" And wild with joy she answered, "Yes." And she gave him all, and yet he did not thank her. The other he loved as a slave, as a madman and a beggar. Why? Ask the dust of the road and the leaves that fall. Ask the mysterious God of life, for there is no other that knows such things. She gave him nothing. No, nothing did she give him, and yet he thanked her. She says, "Give me your peace and your understanding." And he was only sorry that she did not ask his life. And his maid was set in the tower. What do you there, maiden, sitting and smile? I think of something 10 years back. It was then I met him. You remember him still? I remember him still, and time goes on. What do you there, maiden? And why do you sit and smile? I am embroidering his name on a cloth. Whose name? His who shut you up here? Yes, the one I met 20 years ago. You remember him still? I remember him as I did before, and time goes on. What do you there, prisoner? I grow old, and I can no longer see to sew. I scrape the plaster from the walls, and of that I'm making an urn to be a little gift for him. Of whom are you speaking? Of my lover, who shut me in the tower. And do you smile at that because he locked you in the tower? I am thinking of what he will say now. Look, look, he will say, my maiden has sent me a little urn. She has not forgotten me in 30 years. And time goes on. What, prisoner, sit you there idle and smile? I grow old, my eyes are blind. I am only thinking of him that you met 40 years ago. of him whom I met when I was young. Maybe it was 40 years ago. But do you not know, then, that he is dead? Pale Bedlam, you do not answer. Your lips are white. You breathe no more. There, that was a strange tale of the girl in the tower. Wait, Aesop, wait a little. There was something I forgot. One day she heard her lover's voice in the courtyard, and she fell on her knees and blushed. And that was when she was 40 years. I bury you, Ava, and in humility kiss the sand above your grave. A luxuriant rose-red memory flowers in me when I think of you. I am as drenched in blessing at the memory of your smile. You gave all did you give, and it cost you nothing, for you were the wild child of life itself. But others, the miserly ones, who begrudged even a glance, can have all my thoughts. Why? Ask the 12 months and the ships on the sea. Ask the mysterious God of the heart.